Uh-oh.
And we are live, which means there's your countdown, Mace.
Yeah, we're going to pop the top.
That's a soda pop, by the way.
That is a cool pop. Yes.
I need some Gatorade after that hot temperatures out on the field.
You think that was hot? Just wait for next week. Although, just think of it this way. You're not in Arizona. It could be a lot worse. There are parts of this country where they don't want to hear about how hot it is in Denver, Colorado, where we are rank amateurs when it comes to dealing with heat compared to other places. And so I get that.
What about the heat out on the football field? We are here to talk about it today. It is orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and day 3 of training camp. Day 1 in front of the fans, Mason. The fans got a show.
They got a show. I mean, I actually wasn't expecting you to open with that, so I don't really have a comment in response to saying they got a show. So I guess you thought it was more of a show than I did.
Well, they got Bo Nix on their field to start with, right? It was a Zach Wilson day. That's where we'll begin. That's what most of this show will be about. We are going to do a Saturday brain dump just for everybody out there. But the show that they got was they got to see Bo Nix on the field closest to them to begin training camp.
It made him happy. It made the fans happy. But Bo Nix is the people's choice. Understandable. He's the first round pick. They're not selling Jarrett Stidham jerseys or Zach Wilson jerseys in the team shop. They are selling Bo Nix jerseys. That's where the hope is. So that's going to give him an advantage. The thing that in terms of the perception of people who are there, I thought it was very interesting that the 7-on-7 period that opened it up, Bo Nix did not do appreciably better than Jarrett Stidham did in that period, I thought.
Was that the period with the David Sills pass down the left sideline?
I believe so.
Corner route. Yeah, that was the biggest play of the day. There was a Michael Bandy big play there as well. Yes. So Nick's got to stretch it out a little bit. The one to Troy Franklin didn't hit. But what's interesting to note, we'll get to Zach Wilson eventually. There's a lot to get to, Mace. But it's like Bo looked better in 7-on-7 than he did on team.
Yes.
And it's kind of been that way for 3 days.
Yeah, it's when he's in that situation where he's getting into a rhythm. Now, another thing about today was a lot of third down work. So that's not necessarily conducive to getting into a rhythm. It's conducive to putting some pressure on the quarterbacks. And I think that's part of why I looked at the day and said, I thought Jarrett Stidham had the best day of the 3. If I'm ranking the quarterbacks today, and I'd say this is probably the way I've had them all 3 days so far. Stidham, Nix, Wilson, and a much greater distance from Nix to Wilson than Stidham to Nix.
Yes. Yeah. So it's Stidham, Nix, Wilson. You got to have the pause like Sean Payton, right?
The 5.6 second pause.
Wilson there at the end.
You know, the William Shatner pause. Pause acting.
Pause act.
Where you pause for no apparent reason.
Yes, that's right. I love pause act. Not that it's about YouTube comments, but a couple of people were going after us yesterday. Like, you guys hate Zach. We don't hate Zach Wilson. Stop. Please, for the love of God, stop. We don't hate Zach Wilson. We're going to see what we saw, and then we're going to tell you what we saw. And again, once again, Zach Wilson was the third quarterback by a distance.
There are Zach Wilson truthers out there, although I'm not sure
why
they're clinging to truth. I don't know.
Why?
The same reason there were Tim Tebow truthers, I guess. I don't know.
Well, Timmy had his own following for outside of football reasons. I mean, Wilson doesn't necessarily. I mean, physically gifted. And listen, it's about development. It's about working through these guys. It's about training camp. It's about making mistakes. Like, we shouldn't make any sort of, wild judgments right now. All you and I can say, Mace, as people who have attended every practice that's been open for the entire offseason, Wilson has not looked very good in any of the practices.
No, there have been moments where you've said, "Ooh, okay, that's nice." But they're not necessarily the moments that you want to see. Like today, I mean, the gold star moment for me in my notebook regarding Zach Wilson was when he got pressured up the middle by Zach Allen and got flushed and went to his left and made that off-platform, off-balance throw to Josh Reynolds, okay? Now, you have those moments where that's where the arm talent comes in. Zach Wilson does have natural arm talent. But in terms of staying on schedule, which is what you need to do in a Sean Payton offense, that has not been there yet for Zach Wilson. And it doesn't mean it may not get there, but this is why when I talk about Zach Wilson, and it did come up, Mike Kliss did bring forth the notion of carrying 3 quarterbacks on the 53, and Sean Payton said it was possible. If you really value Zach Wilson and want to see where he is in a year and you don't want to risk cutting him, then maybe you do consider carrying him on the 53, but he'd basically be like J.L. Skinner was last year. I mean, you carried J.L. Skinner on the 53, but he barely got on the field. I mean, you were playing with your hand tied behind your back at safety, and J.L. Skinner wasn't getting on the field, right? Which told you he was there because they didn't want to risk losing him on the waiver wire, and they wanted to keep developing him. They may be in that situation with Zach Wilson, and then after a year of football rehab, hopefully not being on the field, hopefully just in practice, in the meeting rooms, trying to break down and alter how he handles pressure. Then maybe on the other side of it, you see a different quarterback because of the natural talent that he does possess. Again, when you see that off-platform play, it's a reminder that this guy does possess some significant athletic talent.
Yes. I don't know, whatever word I'm searching for, not necessarily disappointing, but what's of note to me is Wilson doesn't make on-script plays. I already know he can extend the play and run and throw on the run. Like, I know that, and he can do it, and it's good that he can do that. But this league is about on time, on rhythm. And when Jarrett Stidham was out there, it was on time and on rhythm. And Bo Nix, even in team drills where he had some passes, the one to Philip Dorsett on the right side that was off again, like he's not connecting with Dorsett, which is fine. I don't anticipate Dorsett will make the team. But it's on time and on rhythm, Mace. Yeah. It's like Steve Martin in The Jerk, right? Like, I got it. I got rhythm. Zach Wilson has no rhythm.
That's a movie that didn't age very well, by the way.
He hates these cans.
Oh, man alive. But you look with Jarrett Stidham, his first play in 7-on-7 was incomplete. He hit on 6 of the next 7. He found his rhythm as things went on. Now, I will say this: when you're on third down, and that's the point of emphasis for the day. You know, you maybe define success a little differently and failure a little differently. Like, one thing that Sean Payton really wanted to hammer in his quarterbacks as they were doing this third down work today was a punt. You know, Payton actually said after practice, that a punt's not a bad play. I mean, I thought, John Fox actually said those words 22 years ago when he was coaching Carolina. Sean Payton and John Fox worked together with the New York Giants. I think, I think that was, I think for Sean Payton saying it, that he's got some Foxisms in him, and that's one of them. So,
love it.
Yeah, but that's where when you look at at Bo Nix nearly getting intercepted there toward the end of practice in the last team period, well, that's a concerning moment, because that's, you're running the risk. You're running a pretty big risk there. There was one play. It was in 7-on-7, and you remember when Zach Wilson, he was looking for Tim Patrick, and the coverage was Jaquan McMillan was right there. There was no window to throw, and he tried to jam it in there anyway.
Yeah, yep, and it didn't work.
Did my comment come through there?
Yeah, it did. You were just frozen.
Even though I froze. Yeah,
you were frozen.
I hate when it froze because it was like.
It's a live show, everybody. It's live right here on YouTube. But like, I think Nix is trying to be a little bit more bold. Ha ha ha! You didn't get me that time. You were moving, Mace. I saw your hand moving.
Well,
but
I moved and I stopped.
But then you were moving again.
Yeah. You got to look closely, but it's there.
Nix is trying to be more bold, and maybe this emphasis, and we've got the comments from Payton. You want me to play the quarterbacks working on third downs?
Yes, let's do that. Let's go right there.
Okay. Here's Coach.
How quickly, can you process? Can the ball come out of your hands? When we're working 3rd and 12, I'm telling them, hey, it's complete or incomplete. All right, punting the ball at that point is not a bad thing. When you start statistically looking at, what percentage of conversions are you going to have? So it's being confident in the route, in your what your eyes are seeing, and then look, it's a big part of what makes someone really successful in our league, and then what makes maybe someone not as successful is that fine line of I like it, I don't like it, I like it too much. That's what we spent a lot of time evaluating on college tape.
Interesting.
I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
Yeah. You have to. There's acceptable risk.
Yes.
Because here's another thing. When you talk about like third down and what is an acceptable risk type of play, believe it or not, it's cranking it deep.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's picked off, as long as you have somebody there to make the tackle, like deep down the sideline is one of those, is one of those acceptable risk plays, right? Because a deep, if you've got, let's say you've just got, a stop and go, or let's say you've got a sluggo, and you're either way outside the numbers. You get it picked off, as long as the throw isn't like 10 yards beyond the receiver, that play is likely not getting a substantial return, and it is as good as a punt. Not all interceptions are created equal in terms of the damage they cause. Third and 12, and you pop it deep, and you're looking for Courtland Sutton on a 9 ball, and it's picked off, and Sutton's right there to make the stop, or it's near the sideline, and the interceptor goes out of bounds. Okay, fine. You were gonna punt it a play later, okay?
Right?
Except you took that's not nearly acceptable risk. That's low risk, right? That's a low risk shot, because you know what? You might get a PI, or Court, with his body control and his preternatural ability to adjust to the ball in flight, just might catch the dadgum thing if you give him a shot.
Yep. Throw it up and let the big man go get it.
This is something that I would say Jarrett Stidham has to learn this too. But you see Bo Nix taking some deep shots. Now, he hasn't hit one, but he's taking deep shots.
Mm-hmm.
He overshot. He overshot was a Troy Franklin yesterday, and
yes,
there was another one. I mean, it might. You get why he's kind of trying it with Troy Franklin, because there's the chemistry there. But I like the fact that he's pushing it judiciously. I'm okay with that. What does concern me sometimes on Bo Nix is when he's missing the short to intermediate stuff, like or he's throwing it a little bit behind the receiver. By the way, that's another thing. Jarrett Stidham, who needs to be on rhythm on time, he had bad ball placement, which led to a Courtland Sutton drop. Now, you saw Sutton kind of like Court will probably tell you he could have had it, but it was not a good throw. Two things can be true at the same time, as our friend Zach By would say. Number one, it was not a good throw. Number two, Courtland Sutton believes he should have caught that ball.
Right. And that's one of those, we can't get into route specifics, but like with Bo Nix, he's a little bit in front of Philip Dorsett. He always seems to be in front of Philip Dorsett. Maybe that's on Philip, maybe not, but like there's this disconnect on short to intermediate, which is what we normally see on with Bo Nix. And then the deep shots Stidham's not taking Doesn't he need to take some of those? Even if he's the most steady, we already know it's like the Zach Wilson thing. I already know Jarrett Stidham's steady and consistent. I want to see Jarrett a little bit more bold. Coach even talked about that today, right? Because he's like, I wouldn't say bold. Like, make the smart play at the right time.
Yeah, he did. Well, you want to get into Sean Payton's other comment real quick as well.
Which one? On quarterback execution?
Yes.
Okay. Here's Coach with a little bit of a throwback for us old heads. If you know, you know.
Sean, I know you like the digestion of the system from your quarterbacks. What about the execution from your quarterbacks?
Yeah, and look, I'm all for it. And there's things you have to evaluate sometimes. In other words, the pocket, was it broken down? Like, there's certain things that can take place that may affect their execution. And so when you're evaluating and you're grading the reps, you take all of that into account. But I like the way they're protecting the ball. I think they're working through their progressions. They all can move and they all can run some. And I think that's always been a plus in our league. So, they're getting a lot of looks thrown at them, especially, today with third down. But overall, there's a lot that goes.
Pretty complex.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
That was perfect timing, by the way, because it gave me a chance to change out the batteries in my little XLR doohickey.
And your XLR iRig thing.
Yes.
Thinking, yeah, that thing.
Yeah. You could. I don't know if you could hear a little feedback, but now I think it's good.
Yeah, we're good. But it's one of those days where you just got to go back and watch the film on this. We get to see it once. We get to see it live.
Yeah.
And I think I will compile the 3 days. This is the first day of fans, but it's like, okay, Stidham's steady. Stidham's been the best quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Nix is trying a little bit too hard, sometimes with Franklin, because it's been both days he's missed. The last 2 days he's missed Franklin deep. And man, it would be the crowd was ready to go nuts. We'll get to Thomason's question, but they were like anticipating it to Franklin, and then it didn't hit.
That was, you could feel, it's like you can feel a wave building,
crescendo.
Right? Crescendo. It's like that buzz, that anticipation. Oh, and then, oh.
Here it comes. Oh, nothing. Yeah.
It's like when it looks like a mammoth shot coming off the bat and it dies about 10 feet shy of the wall. That's what it was. If you've been to a baseball game, I'm sure you know that sound, right?
If you know, you know.
Off the bat, you think it's gone, and then
runs out of gas.
Good try. Let's try it again. But it's
overthrowing Troy Franklin twice for the he doesn't have an arm crowd. Yeah, he does.
Oh, he's shown he's got some tools on his bag. Like tools on his bag. Tools on his belt, clubs in his bag. That's one thing I'll say is a positive, at least in terms of the ability to get the ball downfield. He's got a driver, but
no doubt
you got to have a little bit more better, a little bit better timing with it. But you keep trying. The worrisome thing is if you keep trying and it doesn't come. That's why you just go through it day by day and you break it down day by day. But you kind of keep it in context. That's why I like the fact that he went back to that again. But at some point, you're going to have to say, okay, we got to get some results here, right? It can't just be we tried and tried and tried. At some point, it's got to connect. Doesn't have to be today. Doesn't have to be tomorrow. But if you're pushing that on a regular basis, at some point, there's got to be improvement. That's what you're hoping for.
It's a different route, but the Sills throw was a bucket throw on a corner route that was pretty deep and had the crowd going nuts. It's clear. And our buddy Chris Thomason, there's only one, by the way. There's only one Chris. He's the man. Love him. Love chopping it up with him. Old school, right? Ball about ball.
His hat selection is off the
charts. Top notch, right?
I mean, I'm not sure any of those hats was bought after the year 2001.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's a nice collection. And it's clear what fans want. And damn it, Mace, I want it for them.
Yeah.
Because they want this kid to be what he's supposed to be. You can that play to friend. Oh, and Jarrett Stidham would have a completion and they'd be like, golf clap.
That's the thing. Like,
Nix would have an incompletion and they'd be like, yeah.
You actually saw, and that's what's interesting. Comparable completions among the quarterbacks elicit a greater reaction when it's Bo Nix than anybody else.
Yep.
But the coach is trying to tune all that out, as he explained.
Look, I think the fan favorite, from my experience watching practices, is whoever ends up on that side of the field running, whether it's a running back, receiver. I haven't really paid much attention to the fan favorite. Yeah, I mean, I want the fan favorite to be someone that wins for us.
It's a good answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a diplomatic answer.
You win. You're the fan favorite.
Yes. The other thing that's interesting is, like, over the years, a fan favorite is often the guy who's a backup.
Yeah. Kyle Sloter, anybody?
Yes. If you're not happy with the starter, the fan favorite is the unknown. It's like, well, he might be, because there's no negative. There's, it's, there are no, there's no marks on the fender, right? Has it, everything, it's all about possibility. It's all about, oh, well, this is what he might be. And optimistically, you turn might be into what you expect. And then you get out there and the expectations start peeling back when they're confronted with the reality of what they're dealing with. And so you look back, you mentioned Kyle Sloter. We talked about Chad Kelly earlier this week.
Yeah.
Chad Kelly was a fan favorite.
We got a lot of questions about him back in the day.
Mm-hmm. I remember getting questions about Bradley Van Pelt.
I hated those questions.
20 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't like his game. I didn't like him slapping the ball in the face of that CU defender crossing the goal line either. But yeah.
But you're also more of a CU person than a CSU person.
Sure.
And you're from Wyoming, so I think there's a little bit of bias against Cam the Ram and friends. Okay.
Maybe it's because I wasn't smart enough to get into CSU. Although my sister graduated from CSU. Sigma cum laude. Yes, I believe. Yep.
So, or is it summa cum laude?
Whatever.
I think he said Sigma. Whatever. Anyway.
Something.
So
she's the smart one in the family.
Yeah. So there's a history of this, but this is every fan base. It's nothing.
Sure.
New, but when you have a first round pick, it's a different dynamic. Now it's in the minds of a lot of people following this team. Jarrett Stidham is the guy who's in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say the order by which we've seen the quarterbacks this week, Stidham, Nix, Wilson, does tell you where Bo Nix is. It's not just where we see him. I think it's where the Broncos see him too, as the number 2.
Mace, I'm glad he's there. You know what I mean? I'm glad that Bo is the second quarterback.
Well, and him being there also gives a lot of people hope. But I'm glad he's there because I think it's forcing him to work. I don't like the idea of anointing somebody. I think they've got to earn it. I mean, even last year in Houston at this time, they were talking about Davis Webb maybe starting the season. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't CJ Stroud didn't get like kind of stamped as
Davis
the
Mills. Did
I say Davis Webb? God.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, these Davis. Davis Mills. Gosh. He didn't get Stroud didn't get stamped as a starter until about what, like August 10th, August 15th or so. So they did let it play out for a little while in Houston before they put it there. New England. They're certainly making Drake May earn it. It looks more like Jacoby Brissett's going to be the week 1 starter. Although our guy Joe Milton, I don't know if you saw the clip. Joe Milton uncorked one.
He could do that.
He would have been fun to watch around here.
Jacoby and Joe, and then
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with Drake. Same thing. Sam Darnold's going to start over JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
Listen, Justin Herbert didn't start. Tyrod Taylor would have been starting had they not jammed his lung with that injection. Okay. Howie
such
does
a
ask
Chargers
a nice
thing.
question. It is. Howie asked a really cool question. Is Bo worried about underthrowing? So is he overthrowing? There have been some throws where it's been back foot, but today on the one in front of Dorsett on the right sideline, his mechanics were good. His timing was good. He threw it when he was supposed to throw it. It just missed the mark.
I actually thought mechanically was the best day we've seen this week from Bo Nix.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That was positive. I mean, it's honestly, like right now, I feel like what we're seeing is kind of at expectation. I didn't have great expectations for Zach Wilson. It hasn't. So I'm not surprised by what we've seen. I think the one thing with Bo Nix is that he's missed some, some short to intermediate, particularly outside the numbers that he's going to have to hit. And I've seen him hit them in college. So I think it's a matter of him adjusting to what I do like with Bo Nix so far. He really does go through progressions fast. Like that. It's really evident in 7-on-7 when he's getting to the check down progression so quick. And that's an interesting contrast with Zach Wilson because Wilson's very slow at going through the progressions compared to Nix. Now, the interesting thing on Bo is that you go through that so fast that there may be times that it's almost like you don't give your receiver a chance to get open and you take that check down before something might have happened. So there's that sort of happy medium that you have to find.
That's what the Broncos are doing, and that's why we have to watch it organically.
Yes.
This is what they wanted.
Big picture. That's,
yes.
Take it, report the day to day, but I'm doing a report. It's going to be up at denversports.com right after this show. I'm not giving a grade. I'm not declaring a winner.
Right.
I'll
have my practice report and my notes out there as well. And Mike brings up something
that's a
good
great point from Mike Naylor here.
Yep. Bo's first year at Oregon was okay, but once he knew the offense, his last season at Oregon was ridiculous.
And that's true for a lot of people. Like, it's funny. On the offensive line, Garett Bolles mentioned that today. He talked about how his best season was 2020. I mean, that was the year that got him the contract. Well, 2020 was his second year working with Mike Munchak. So now, here it does matter. And look, I think that's one reason why Jarrett Stidham has an advantage today. The second year in his scheme, second year with coaches, that does matter. That is relevant.
We probably won't see Jarrett Stidham struggle until, and maybe not even in the preseason because of pressure. Jarrett Stidham needs pressure to know what he truly is. He can run a system, he can be steady, but we need to see him under pressure. I won't know much about Jarrett Stidham in terms of like, where's he at in year 2 until I see him under duress, like real true duress. Detroit Mission Control, our guy, says, how's Bo's footwork? What I admire most about Bo Nix is his feet lead his eyes. All the best quarterbacks, their feet lead their eyes. You can't see it and then turn and move. You have to anticipate, and that's where you mentioned him going through his progression so quickly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he does. Feet leads his eyes. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there are these signs that I think show that it's going to get better for Bo Nix, like things like that. I think fundamentally he's doing some good things. You're concerned about maybe the individual moments, but you're not. I'm not concerned about the progress. But I do think if I did have to call it today, I would call Jarrett Stidham as the week 1 starter, just because there's not much of a gap, but there's a gap. And I think if it can't, and again, the other thing also is if you start Stidham, it's easy to go to Bo Nix. If you start Bo Nix, you can't really go to Jarrett Stidham, and maybe you have to view this season like baseball, where sometimes instead of a traditional starting pitcher, you have an opener to kind of to get you through the first couple of innings, and then you go to the guy that you want to go 5 or 6 innings. And maybe that's how maybe Jarrett Stidham becomes your opener, and you play it out until it just doesn't work. I mean, you mentioned Jarrett Stidham under pressure. We know that in week 1, McDonald's going to throw all sorts of stuff. He's gonna want to, announce his presence as Seahawks head coach with authority. So he doesn't have the personnel defensively that he had in Baltimore, at least not in the first 2 lines of defense. So I don't know how effective that's going to be, but there are going to be some different looks. And then you get to week 2 and you're staring down at TJ Watt and company in Pittsburgh. So the pressure, not pressure in terms of fan pressure, environment pressure, the pressure in terms of pass rush, it's going to mount on Jarrett Stidham pretty quickly. And we're going to get a good idea of whether he is advanced in that aspect of his game or not. We're going to get a good idea within the first couple of weeks.
As we wrap up the show, Mike brings up something that I asked Coach Payton about at the owner's breakfast or coach's breakfast, because when do you know if a guy's reached his potential or if there's something left on the bone, so to speak? Mm-hmm. He told us, Mace, as we were sitting at breakfast with him, he said, we're not there yet. Those were his exact words. We're not there yet with Stidham. So Mike, has Stiddy peaked? Sean Payton doesn't think so.
Yeah. And his vision for Stidham and his potential, he said it wasn't altered by, what he showed last year. That there just was, he didn't have enough of a sample size.
Right.
Because sometimes you have a vision and then the player comes in under that and you have to downgrade that. That's based on what Sean Payton said. That hasn't happened with Jarrett Stidham, which means you go back to what he said last offseason, when he said, I see him as someone who's a potential starter. Remember, he made those comments at the coach's breakfast every spring is always one of those. It's a moment where things get revealed. I don't know if it's because they have the big party the night before and everyone's a little, if everyone was there too late, is a little, glassy eyed and whatever, and they haven't had enough lattes. But usually some truths come pouring out there in that environment.
That's very true. It's cool when we see y'all out there in public. I was standing under the tent with the fans, and Seth came up to me and he goes, OBT's a BFD.
Oh.
And I was like, what? And he goes, OBT's a BFD. I was like, cool, man. What's your name? He goes, Seth. And so we chopped it up. He's excited about Bo. Yeah, man. We're men of the people, Andrew Mason.
Yeah. I mean, I talked with a fan today who came all the way from Wilmington, North Carolina to watch practice today.
Whoa.
Yes.
How'd that happen?
As he told me that they thought about going to the mountains up in North Carolina for a getaway, but decided to go to Colorado. So they're at practice today. They're going to be at practice tomorrow. Went to, did the Colorado thing, went to Pikes Peak, Garden of the Gods, all that. But really just think about that. I mean, you're building part of your vacation. You're coming, I think it's about, it's probably about 1,700, 1,800 miles, I believe. From that part of North Carolina, and you're building part of that around training camp practice. So anyway,
it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's cool. There's been a lot of love today. And a lot of love. Thank you very much, Mike. No BS, no fillers. Yeah, I don't know. There's a little BS sometimes, but usually we save it for the end.
We get a little bit that way. We got a Saturday brain dump coming up. We'll get a little slap happy for you on Saturday, and then we'll have our regular OBT as well.
By the way, you think you want to do that at night? Do you want that to be an after dark?
Well, I was going to ask you off air, because it would be kind of cool if we did it 10 p.m.
Okay.
Or 11 p.m. or something. Okay. Something nuts.
We'll talk about this tomorrow.
Let's wind it down. Wind it down, baby. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I've gotten some compliments on the after dark at night kind of the vibe,
Wouldn't mind it. Maybe we could have some cold pops. Just pop
Yes.
for corporate.
Yes,
just soda.
Just
Nothing
yeah,
else.
Yes.
Ever.
That's all. I had a Mountain Dew Baja Blast today, and I went through it. It's gone. See.
Yeah. I've had a couple of dews myself today
Yes.
because we're getting through it through training camp with you, but we need your help on YouTube. How can they do that, Mace?
Like,
Comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell.
so that you
Never
miss a vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?